Hi everybody, this is Holly, and today I am going to do the how to build a fire portion of outdoor leader training. We will be building fires, we'll be learning fire safety, and we will be learning the different kinds of fires and how they're used, and then how to safely put one out. So first thing we're going to do is what you need to build a fire. You will need a bucket full of water, always a bucket full of water. You will need matches, not a lighter, matches. Some kind of a fire starter, we'll go through those. There are three kinds of wood. We need tinder, which is small wood, usually about as big as your pinky around. We need kindling, which is a little bit bigger wood, but still small, not as big as your wrist. And we need fuel, which is going to be our main wood to get our fire going. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you three different styles of fire and let you know what they're used for. And then I will actually get one lit so we can see how that works. Okay, first one I'm showing you is a box fire or log cabin fire. As you can see, I have two parallel logs and two more parallel logs for fuel. I have my tinder in the middle and my kindling on top. And then as this fire burns, you can add more logs as such, and then the next two logs will go this way. This is going to make you a nice flat fire. If you need to cook, if you're cooking off of something hanging over it or off of a grill plate, it's going to give you a nice base, even to put like a Dutch oven on or foil dinners in or something like that. This is a nice base fire that's going to give you a large area. Okay, this is a cone fire. As you can see, the fuel is set up in a cone shape. They're just leaned up against each other. And we have our tinder on the bottom, the very, very bottom, and that's where our fire starters would go. And then our kindling is going to be on top of that. We're going to light it down here and it's going to come up. This makes a great fire for roasting something. It makes a great fire if you have like a spit or something and you need a point of surface. If you make it lower, we could put it under this grill over here. We'd have a nice hot spot right there to put a pot or something on. So it's a great type of fire for that type of cooking. Okay, this is a basic A-frame fire. This is probably the kind we use the most. You use 3 logs that are flat and they make an A shape. And your tinder goes in the middle and your kindling on top, and then you light it underneath. This makes a nice broad fire, great for cooking anything on a stick over, makes a bigger area. You can, makes a nice set of coals if you're looking to make like Dutch oven cooking where you need your coals set out. So this is a nice basic fire. If you're going for something easy that's going to light easy, give you a quicker fire, this would be the way to go. Okay, so the first thing we need to do when we light a fire is learn how to light a match. So if you need to practice lighting matches or you want to have your girls practice lighting matches, and girls can do this at any age as long as they're supervised, best kind of matches are going to be a wooden stick match. You have them light it, drop it into a bucket. It's the easiest way they're going to learn. If they get freaked out a little bit, drop it into the bucket. So we have our matches. We also need our fire starters. They're not necessary, but they're extremely helpful. There's a whole bunch of different things you can use as fire starters. You can use the ends of candles. You can use newspaper, wadded up. I have 3 kinds that we use here. This is a paper egg carton, and it's filled with sawdust and then has candle wax melted over it. And you just put that right in with your tinder. This is super easy to make. This is lint from the dryer, and you just wrap it up in a little piece of wax paper. Makes a great fire starter, easy to carry around. And then the favorite one that we seem to get, because it burns even when it's wet out, is just cotton balls and petroleum jelly. And all you do is swipe the cotton ball and the petroleum jelly, because the jelly will burn well. So those are our 3 kinds of fire starters. We will use probably the petroleum jelly one to get our fire started today. So, okay, so we're going to light our A-frame fire now. So I have 3 cotton balls. Use as many as you think you need with petroleum jelly on it. Kind of tuck them under the corner pieces so they get a nice airflow going under there. Got to have airflow. We're going to light them. Just going to actually light the cotton balls. Make sure our kindling gets in there, can catch. Tinder on there, might need to add something. Got a nice flame going there. Let's maybe throw another one in. So the point is that we'll burn long enough to help the wood catch. Like I have wood caught already right down there. So we're going to put you there. And it was as easy as that, one match. We've got our nice dry wood. You can tell your wood is dry because when you do this, it snaps instead of bends. So we know our kindling is dry, our tinder is dry. So we ought to have a nice fire going here shortly. Okay, we got some fire safety rules we need to go over. First of all, as you can see, our beautiful A-frame fire here is built in a fire ring or fire scar. If there is one at your campsite, use it. Do not light a fire that's not in a fire ring or a fire scar. If you are in a place that does not have a fire ring, you need a flat, cleared area. Do not have grass right up against the fire ring. If you see it right up against it, make sure you pull it out because it will start, it's a possible fire hazard, could start on fire. Bucket of water is always by the fire. But my wood is near the fire but not right up against the fire ring because the fire ring is going to get hot. We don't want to start it on fire. You should really store your wood in an area where you can cover it or it's under cover so that if it rains during the night or during the day, you're still going to have dry wood. It's a lot easier to start a fire with dry wood. If you have long hair, make sure your hair is tied back. You don't want anything dangling. If your girls are wearing name tags, make sure they're tucked in their shirts if they're around the fire. If they're wearing sweatshirts with strings or jackets with strings, make sure those are all tucked away. We don't want any loose clothing that's going to dangle over the fire. You don't have to actually be in the flame. My knee is getting hot right here. You don't have to actually be in the flame to get burnt, or particularly if it's a synthetic fiber and it's going to melt. The other thing we have to be careful of with the girls is when they sit around the fire, they have a tendency to want to put their feet up there to get warm. Your shoes will melt if you set them on the fire ring with your feet in them. And parents get a little upset when that happens, so do not let your girls put their feet by the fire. Do not let them walk across the fire, over the fire. There needs to be 3 points of contact, which means they shouldn't be sitting like this. They need to have a knee on the ground, hand, then they can roast whatever they're roasting. They can be standing up. We don't want them tipping forward. We don't want them crowded around the fire. They're going to have to learn to take turns if you have a lot of girls. So you have to make sure that the safety is the first concern. That means everybody is not going to be able to get whatever they're cooking necessarily in there right at the same time. And that's fine, but they need to understand that the safety is going to come first. Make sure your girls are wearing shoes that are covered toes. We don't want any sandals at all, even closed-toed sandals, because embers can get into the little holes between the sandals and burn their feet. And you cannot get a foot out of a sandal that fast, and they will get a nasty burn. They should not be standing or walking around on top of the benches. It's not a play area. Girls like to throw food in the fire, figuring it'll burn it up, and garbage in the fire. Do not burn garbage in food. Food does not burn 100%, which attracts animals. And garbage, when you throw it in the fire, you're never quite sure what's in that garbage, and it might not actually burn. So, or it may be releasing toxic chemicals when it's burned. So you should not be throwing your garbage in the fire. The other thing is when you go camping is watch your weather conditions. Know when you go to a place if there is any kind of fire burning restrictions. If it's a very, very hot, dry summer, sometimes they will say you can't have a fire, so make sure you check that. Make sure you check and see if there are wood restrictions. Do you have to use wood from within a certain area, or can you bring wood with you? And check the local weather. If it's going to be really, really windy that day, you probably don't want to start a fire. The other tip is if you start your fire in the daytime and you know it's going to be running till after dark, put away your matches and things before it gets dark, because otherwise you aren't going to find them in the dark and be able to put them away, and then come morning they'll be damp and you won't be able to use them. Okay, you also need to make sure that when you have a fire lit, you must have an adult by the fire at all times. Girls are not allowed by a fire without an adult, and fires are not allowed to be unattended. If you are going to leave the fire has to be put out. Okay, so if you're going to be cooking a meal, just remember that when you start a fire like this, it's not ready to cook in 5 minutes. Be prepared that when you come to a camp area and you're going to be eating soon after you get there, you need to have time for the fire to get going. So give yourself 45 minutes to an hour to get that fire good and hot so that the girls can cook a meal over it. Don't expect to show up and have them eat in the 5 minutes that they're there. They have to let that start. So be prepared to give yourself that kind of time. If you're not going to have that kind of time, you might not want to have a fire to cook on that night. Okay, we're here today, another campsite, different fire. Today we're going to show you how to put out a fire. Just a reminder that fires have to be tended. You can't just light a fire and let it go. It'll burn for a little while and then it's going to burn out. It has to be poked and prodded and things fall down and that disrupts the airflow and you have to move things around, which is why you always need a shovel or a big stick or something to poke around there. Don't let the girls do that unless they're a much older girl. So you can't just light it and go. You have to pay attention to it. Getting good at lighting fires takes practice. It's not a hard skill to learn, but it is a skill. If you want to practice and you don't have a fire pit, get some of those aluminum baking pans, put it out on a non-burning surface like a concrete sidewalk or a driveway, and practice lighting fires in there. They just have to be small. You don't have to make big fires, but that's going to help you practice and keep it tended. But it comes with practice. That's all you have to do is continue to practice. We have our fire here. We made our lovely lunch on it, and it's just about ready to get put out. We're going to use it again later this evening. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to, as you can see here, there's one partially burned log left. Because as Girl Scouts, we use our resources wisely. We use the amount of wood we're going to need. If you have more than one half-burned log left, you've used way too much wood. I go to Girl Scout camps all the time and I see piles of unburned logs. You can always add more wood. You can't take it off. Use what you need. As much as everybody wants to do a bonfire, absolute waste of wood. You only need to burn what you're cooking. Use your resources wisely. So we have this one left, which we will end up burning tonight when we make our fire tonight. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to spread out all our ashes. We want no big chunks next to each other, because if they are sitting next to each other, they will keep each other lit. So we're going to make sure that we have most of our stuff scraped off. It's nice and warm still though. So we are going to put this out. But because we are using it again tonight, we aren't going to actually drown the whole thing. We are going to scoop water. You can see. We'll put it on the areas we know are really hot. You never dump the whole bucket because you will get this massive smoke cloud of ash. You don't want that. You can get embers and everything up. So we put it on the logs, put it in this area, any place where it's hot. If it's nighttime and you're doing this, you can see the red spots. And then we're going to check and see. Much cooler, but still pretty hot, so it's going to smoke for a little while. Now, if you're staying at your campsite, this is really less of a concern because someone will be here to keep an eye on it if it starts back up. But if you are leaving the campsite, you have to make sure this is out. This is how forest fires get started. People don't put their fire out all the way. Push this around a little bit. It's not as easy as just saying, oh, there's no flame, fire must be out. Doesn't work that way. Got a lot of smoke here yet. This is getting there. This big log is our issue. Okay, now when we restart this fire tonight, we'll flip this log over so we have a drier side that's not burnt, and use it as one of our bases. Depending on how burnt the log is, if it's really burnt, but there's still log on it. I wouldn't use it to restart the fire, but I definitely add it in once the fire gets going. There's way too much half-burned logs out on Girl Scout property. Need to get this burnt. So this fire pit is good. It's just some ash. I'll check it again in a couple minutes to make sure it still stays down, and then this should be good to go. So that's how you put out a fire. A little bit of water at a time. Do never dump the whole bucket in there, and this is why you always need to have water next to your fire.